Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 38 of Input Left's Pokemon Diamond Randomizer Nuzlocke. We're doing a little tour of the world with Surf. Should be coming to an end pretty shortly now.
Tour de Sinnoh.
Of Sinnoh, yeah. Tour de Sinnoh, that's right. And yeah, we actually just we went to Eterna City, we bought a few things. We realized we can get Ultra Balls now, so we bought a bunch of those. We bought some healing items for when we're on long routes and there's no Pokemon Center nearby. And yeah, we're ready to keep going. Apparently this is Floroma Town here, this little stretch of land, but then when we go in here, this is gonna be Floroma Meadow, so kind of weird when you think about it. I don't know, it's just an odd thing I noticed. We already got our Floroma Meadow encounter much earlier. It was that glam, yeah, we got the honey tree. So
yeah, do we get Shaman over here?
No.
Oh, you know what this stuff is.
Well, I just kind of guessed on that one, I'll be honest. Yeah, Shaman is the event. It's actually near Victory Road. There's a little extra route there, and you can walk across some bridge or something to go to some flower island and get Shaman. I don't know. I've never done it actually. I've just seen
what
of it.
You noob. Well,
yeah.
Glad to be in my favorite town again, Floroma. Canonically, even though, as I said, the flowers are actually really ugly.
Soured, yeah.
Yeah, why is it just copy-paste? So many flowers.
Hey, there's 4 different colors, dude. Come on now.
It's like a maze of flowers, but you can still walk on the flowers, so it's not even really a maze.
It's like the one shrine in Breath of the Wild where
you can sell that.
You can't step on the flowers. That's true, yeah, that's decent money.
So we got 50, we got 50 Ultra Balls, so we are set. Those are some nice
we were
balls.
actually rolling in money, and now we are not, but
Oh, we'll sell the jump fossil. Actually, this strip leading up north, where you can typically find Obama Snow, and then get to that town up north. Is that happening soon? That's one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah, we're going to the Canal City first, but then it should be not long after.
Great.
I feel like you might be alone in that being one of your favorite parts of the game.
Really?
Because it's there's a lot of deep snow that you can't identify from regular snow that you get stuck in, and it slows down your movement speed, and it's always hailing.
Well, it probably won't be my favorite part of the game once I experience it again.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I just loved the idea that the diversity of the geography of the region was.
It is a cool area. I will say I like the idea of, especially when you're leaving Mount Coronet, there's all these different elevations. There's all these skiers and stuff. That definitely is cool, in my opinion.
Totes,
but yeah.
Goats.
Sir. No, we can't get through yet. Still. Just want to see if there's a surf thing here. So.
What a pro, knows this game so well.
Oh, okay, dude. All right, I see you. I see you over there.
So, you were talking the other day. Actually, it was last night. You mentioned to me something about, this G7 meeting. And I wanted to share news that I think we got this morning.
Please, yeah. I don't know if I've heard of this yet.
Was the global minimum? You were talking
about. But the news that you got this morning, I don't know about.
I think they passed it. I think they're moving to pass it. Okay, it means nothing. I mean, it won't be enforceable.
Yeah. Go ahead and explain for the audience what we're talking about.
Sure thing. So, there's conversations happening with some of the world's biggest, baddest countries.
Oh yeah.
Including, of course, the United States, which is of those two things. Well, both big and bad.
Both big and bad.
and Russia and others, so others that are also big and bad, but also I don't know, France, which isn't big anymore.
Well, not as big, but still kind of bad.
Yeah. But they're talking about putting the UN putting a global minimum tax, so that way on corporations, so that way you get rid of the tax race to the bottom tax shelter problem, which is that companies will just move to the country that has the lowest rate, which is 0, you know? Oh,
Yeah.
you're being attacked by the VA.
Exactly.
He's a veteran, but he's just a samurai, dude. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it probably means something slightly different in
Yeah, he's probably sensei.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's probably like sensei, like master or something. Yeah.
Master Shifu. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what the hell were we talking? Oh yeah, global minimum. So they moved to pass it. It's probably one of those things. For those who don't know, the UN has like very little actual power. So they say, yeah, something's required, like not gassing your citizens, and then, you know, one of the core members starts gassing its citizens. That's the US, by the way. So
yeah, the US is the US vetoes everything because the US is on like the Security Council.
Well, even
notably, actually, just to tie this back to Israel-Palestine slightly and make things.
Oh boy! Oh great! Yeah.
I think the US was the only member of the Security Council recently who, on multiple occasions, vetoed a resolution calling for a ceasefire during the recent stretch of conflict between Israel and Palestine. Eventually, of course, a ceasefire did happen and the US supported it, but there was like 4 or 5 attempts during that first week to reach a ceasefire, and the UN like kept trying to pass this resolution saying like, we demand a ceasefire. We condemn the war crimes committed by Israel. The US was like shaking its head like, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. So yeah.
Really quick to interrupt. The level cap, I just had like a panic that like, are we're good on that, right?
It is 39.
Okay. So
yeah,
we're not actually particularly good.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Is another gym like close?
Yes. So basically, like there's like there's like this random trainer, and then there's gonna be a rival fight before the next gym. There's gonna be
like, I think you need to take Mayor Bernie out of the rotation for a little bit.
No, I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
But I appreciate your concern.
I'm just imagining
if things get sketchy, I can always like put on an EXP sponge and give it the EXP share.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, what if we accidentally were just already over the level? What would we do?
I mean, you just have to box those Pokemon like immediately that are over the level. Yeah.
That'd be pretty rough.
But yeah, the levels limit's 39, so we got some wiggle room for sure.
So
remember that it's like you can hit the level limit. Like we can be at 39. And if we pass it during the gym fight, that's also okay. Like the actual gym leader battle.
So I wanted to share with you, I took an action today to become a good person. And I want you to hear it and congratulate me. So
yeah.
I have a grocery store about a mile and a half from my house, so pretty close, very short drive, and it's a co-op. And
yeah,
I'm gonna want to hear what you know about co-ops, but you for $80 you get shares in it, and then you join it and you become a co-op member. And I just thought, like, why am I shopping at these chain grocery stores when I can be supporting my local co-op? So I'm a good person because I joined a co-op. Also, I have a credit union. I was just thinking, like, I'm becoming like the ultimate, like social good person. So that was my thought.
Well, I'm sorry to say, Ryan, that all the Praxis in the world means nothing. Oh shit, that was a mistake. All the Praxis in the world means nothing if you haven't read any theory. So actually, you're not a good person.
Oh,
you're still unintentionally reinforcing the existing hierarchy.
Is this actually an opinion people hold?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably exaggerating, but not by a lot. There are definitely some theory Andes out there that are like, all Praxis is meaningless without theory. Like, you have to read theory to be a good leftist.
That feels like
literally everybody needs to read theory. Yeah. Like, can I just say, movements have started without theory, and the people that wrote theory didn't necessarily read theory before they came up with it. You know, like
the movements without, well, I don't know. That's a complex subject, but yeah.
No, yeah,
right.
yeah. Like obviously, like theory is very important. I'm never gonna say it isn't.
See,
but it's kind
I
of
think,
pretentious and elitist. I think
Yes.
when people go around saying like, "Oh, if you haven't read theory, then like any revolutionary act or like any like good deed you do is like worthless or worse because you haven't read theory."
So,
and,
so let me start with
every
also,
individual needs to do
just
it.
so
Like,
the
not
viewers,
just like thought leaders need to do it.
right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Let me say just so the viewers know, I have read theory, but so just to get that
I'm sure you
started.
have. Yeah. Yeah.
But I see. I think we actually most often people like in movements actually have a lot of the opposite problem. Like it's a lot of like one of my old bosses used to tell me. He always said like la teoría sin práctica is useless. Like the theory without practice.
Theory without practice is that's
and
I think that's the more pressing problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Like all we do is talk about issues, and a lot of people just not we. Like I do a lot of shit, but like a lot of people.
We're doing Praxis right now. Come on.
Like technically we're putting stuff into the.
Well, barely. I like
barely,
see that's the thing that like a lot of people think counts as Praxis is like tweeting occasionally.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's not nothing, but
I mean, if we succeeded developing a platform, like that's practice, but like yeah,
but like Praxis is like going out and like affecting change, you know, it's demonstrating, it's organizing, like that's Praxis.
Yeah. I mean, even
in its purest form.
And let me say, like, even I think sometimes even demonstrating and protesting without like deeper organizing falls short on like the practice.
Definitely can,
need, right?
Yeah. But it's still something. But yeah,
at least it's something. But when it get a lot of the problem, I think is like people are so deep into the theory that they are frozen and they can't actually take any decisive action, because when you read enough theory, you get to first of all, I don't know if there's also other factors like laziness or like the belief that your actions don't matter. I have no idea what
I'm sure those are all relevant for various people.
Yeah. But also like when you get frozen up I'm trying to think of a really good way to articulate this, but there's a lot of people who because of theory, everything just is bad and the whole world is horrible.
Yes.
Nothing works and everything's bad. And so they don't offer any practice, because the second they do that, they're susceptible to that, right? And it kind of goes to that. I mean, I don't know how much we've talked about canceling, but like people have literally like people cancel voting, people cancel protesting, people cancel organizing, to the point where you have not offered any practice or any meaningful practice that actually moves any needles, right? And that's a huge problem that I think is in movement spaces and people who think they're in, movements. But the people who are most active and actually most change making are people that have, in my experience, have a much vaguer understanding of theory, have much more of an understanding of their core values, and are just acting according to their core values being like placed on the world. And
I think those are the people that drive movements ultimately, like maybe you have like those thought leaders that guide you and like that give you like a clear idea of purpose or what you're trying to achieve. But at the end of the day, most of the people that support a movement are not going to be like studious readers of practice or theory, or they're going to be people who have a material interest and know what the changes they want to see in the world, even if they can't articulate it very eloquently, or like safeguard every single like path that they take against like corruption because they haven't read all the theory. I don't know. But I did want to say that like what you talked about there, Joe, with people like basically like getting so consumed by fear and like petrified by theory that they feel like there's nothing they can do. I feel like I'm gonna coin some new theory right here, right now.
Okay,
I'm gonna call that. Here's a new term for you. I'm gonna call that theoretical paralysis. It's like option paralysis in a video game where you like
or
you
like
have so many
fatigue.
options. Yeah. Where you have so many options in terms of how to punish something. Like here, let me put it like this, right? It's not the same thing.
I'm following you. But
so
go on.
You know how like in Super Smash Brothers, if you damage an opponent's shield enough, it breaks.
Oh my god, this
right?
is okay. Yeah.
And then they're stunned. They're just completely vulnerable for
stun-locked.
Stun locked, maybe. Well, potentially.
No, wait. That's different.
They're just totally vulnerable for like 10 seconds, basically, or close to it. Oh, there's nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
And a common phenomenon that may surprise people who are uninitiated is that sometimes what will happen is you'll have so many different ways to punish somebody's shield getting broken that you end up like not doing anything because you can't commit to one, you know? Like, do you go for like a big smash attack? Do you go for a flashy combo? Do you go for like some special move, right? If you aren't sure and like you can't decide, you kind of just sit there doing nothing until the shield break kind of wears off, and maybe you do like a half-hearted, like partially charged smash attack, and you feel terrible about yourself, you know? And so that's kind of that kind of paralysis is kind of what I think theoretical paralysis is like, although not necessarily in the same way. But it's like you get to this point where you're like, elections don't matter, protest doesn't matter because none of it changes anything ever, which is not true.
Right, at all.
And therefore, I won't participate in any of these structures, which ironically makes them less effective because they aren't being participated in. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, if you believe that like those kinds of actions are meaningless, then they become meaningless.
Well, I'll give you a couple examples that I've experienced. So one is pretty recent. There's a candidate who's running for mayor of Minneapolis, and her platform is, you know, she's very much in the movement left. She's very much an organizer, or I like to say a mobilizer, because to me, organizing, I don't know her experience, but organizing is something that, genuine organizing is a lot rarer than I think people who have a career out of it think. But, and without going too deep into that, she's really big on the police issue, and she's used the term abolish the police, defund the police, and that's a lot of that is rooted in theory, right? And even like I go back to, because police abolitionism is the new thing, kind of, but a much longer, people have had I think a longer understanding, maybe in some spaces, maybe this is biased by personal experience, of like prison abolitionism, and they're kind of very linked ideologies, right? And like, to me, like both are ideologies. They're a way of looking at the system, and you can't take the word at face value to mean anything besides a general. I mean, like everybody who says that means it's something different, right? You ask like 10 people, even on like the far left, what abolish the police means, and they'll give you 10 different definitions.
I think right, yeah.
And so she said, you know, she has the abolish message, she has the defund message, and she, you know, she's starting to say, because she realizes it's gonna get her a lot farther, like reimagine public safety and things like that.
Right.
But because she's the candidate of the left, and that's the kind of avenue she's taking, she is also really tied down. Sorry, this wheezing really distracted me for some reason. She's really kind of tied down by like, she doesn't want to upset anyone. And maybe you understand where this is going, but she has yet to produce any kind of actual like police plan. And she also was approached by someone who's pretty well known and pretty trusted, who offered a public safety plan, and she refused to sign on because the second she signs on to a plan, she can be attacked on the basis of any kind of theory, right?
Yeah.
And this is the example of like, okay, that's great. You have a police abolitionist ideology. You have an idea of like wanting a different public safety system, but you can't, if you're going to run for mayor, which in Minneapolis, the mayor has controlled the police department. Like the mayor is the chief, like ranks above like whatever chief of police, like that's the city structure. So there's a direct like chain of command there, and you're going into that system, but you're not willing to take any stance because you don't want to be attacked from any angle on you know, theory. And so you're frozen. She's frozen. Like she will not take a stance. And the way this I think materializes often is like people who will say no to everything, but not offer an alternative. And
talk less, smile more. I mean, it's the age-old political trope, right? Since the dawn of time, you never commit to a specific proposal or policy, because once you do, you're set in stone. People can criticize you for it. What people have to
happens
realize
so
is that
much.
you can also be criticized for not taking a stance on anything, not taking a solid stance on anything. And I think that historically, that hasn't been as bad as the criticism for taking a solid stance on something.
Yeah.
But I hope that we are able to change that and able to call people out when they refuse to tie themselves to anything.
I think this is very similar to what you're saying, but I'm going to point out like one area of divergence, which is a talk less, smile more. Like oftentimes what historically I think we see is like middle grounders, right? Like, you know, both sides have merit, whatever. Like, I can't take a stance. Like, or like both sides are equally valuable. I just want to have a conversation and find the common ground and whatever. And
Israel,
that's
Palestine. And that's what the Democrats say. The Republicans don't say that. Republicans say Israel is totally right.
Well, the modern Democrat, like for the last 30 years, has been that exact like archetype. That's the Hillary Clinton's, like today's Hillary Clinton, not when she started maybe, but of like let's just make everyone happy. I won't say anything concrete.
Two-state solution, peace in the Middle East.
Peace. It's a peace. That's all we want, peace. But what we see, like in the movement, and left people on the left, is not necessarily it's certainly not this middle ground ideology. It's actually the everything is bad. No. And you say no to everything, and you cancel everything, and you say why everything is not the right solution. But then you're just, as we were saying, you're stun locked. You're never able to. You're paralyzed. You're never able to actually verbalize a solution because you've just negated everything as a possibility. And it's ultimately the effect is the same, where like you don't take any decisive action, which is ironic. But yeah, that's my TED talk.
Why did it just use sleep talk in the last turn of rest? That's funny to me. Sorry.
Because the coding is bad.
It could have been sleep talking that whole time. Okay, I'm switching over. Right?
Hey, careful. Coke Bros is about to level up.
But that's fine.
Oh yeah.
Like them hitting 39 doesn't really matter to me.
Right. I forgot about that.
And in fact, RBG's been on 39 for like the last 2 episodes.
I can think of so many examples of this though. When I was in student government, this was actually a really big thing too, that I was pushing like, we need to like invest our student government dollars into like equity programs. And there were a lot of people that would say, no, that's a bad idea because like the way you're going about it is bad because X. But they would never offer an alternative. And that was really effective for killing it because there's some, I don't remember who has expressed this, but if we're gonna go back to theory, like if two sides offer alternatives, you're probably gonna arrive somewhere in the middle. But if one side refuses to offer an alternative, you can just end up like striking down the only option on the table, and nothing happens, right?
It's a really miserable process. I understand that. Compromising on your beliefs, especially when they're so strongly held, is really terrible. And I'm certainly no centrist middle grounder in many ways, but and certainly we've done too much compromise in many cases in this country. But I do think that like you can't just entirely cut yourself off from every political process because it's never going to be perfect. Like you can reshape the political process if all of us who are disillusioned by it worked together. We could reshape it to look a lot better and a lot closer to what we want.
Because probably most Americans are disillusioned, or like a good 45%.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm with you. The where else this comes to mind? I think I have a lot of jokes with about that I used to have with coworkers. One of my jobs about abolish capitalism, like in terms of
abolishing what? I think you may have cut off there.
Capitalism, the joke about it being that we're all like socialists pretty much. So like my boss was like and he's still a mentor of mine, and he was like literally like in one of the revolutions in El Salvador, actually, specifically.
Right, I think you mentioned that one.
Yeah. And like so we're all like literal socialists, but the joke about abolish capitalism is like a lot of people who say that think they're opting out and think they're like choosing not to be involved by doing various like things, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but, and I think, was it ContraPoints or was it Sean that had this point about like capitalism is like defines everything in the world, like shifting it is not.
I think it was ContraPoints.
Yeah.
In one of her more recent videos about like the online left.
Yeah.
Like all these people who want to overthrow capitalism, and it's this sort of thing of like that's a great and noble goal, but you have to keep in mind that it like it's not so simple. Like overthrowing capitalism is like overthrowing feudalism. You know, like it governs basically the entire world right now, just as feudalism once did.
More so.
Feudalism took like hundreds of years. Yeah, probably more so. And feudalism took hundreds of years to dismantle, and a lot of work, and in many cases, bloody revolution. Right?
Well,
which is not necessarily what we're gonna have to do here.
Arguably, it wasn't. Arguably, the revolutions weren't what actually dismantled it. It was just economic processes like changing, right? Like.
Yeah,
the flow of wealth.
Because capitalism is definitely an iteration of feudalism. Like, it is an evolution of it, not a replacement of it.
And pure capitalism is almost identical to feudalism.
Yes, and capitalism is basically feudalism. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's, you know, somebody said that like, you know, capitalism, I think we can largely agree, has been an improvement on feudalism. I think that's true. I 100% think that's true. I think capitalism has greatly, compared to the previous like dominant economic structure, which was feudalism, greatly expanded civil rights and the quality of life and so many other things for so many people. It's awesome, but it can only do so much, and we have been for a long time now coming up against the many downsides of capitalism, and it's time to move on. Now, that's not easily done, obviously, and that's what we have to keep in mind, right? Is that like it's not as simple as not participating in capitalism. Like that's not how it works, right? Like that's not what we're getting at here.
Right.
You need to do things like organize and participate in order to dismantle it, essentially.
And shift culture, you know.
Yeah.
Not just make your individual choices.
And you know, this is where in the United States, I know not everybody on the left loves him or agrees with him, but Bernie Sanders has single-handedly, not totally single-handedly, obviously, because he's had so many grassroots movements behind him, so many people working on the streets. But he and the movement he's created have done so much in the United States to make alternative structures to capitalism seem viable again.
Yeah.
Because they were viable like 100 years ago, but they have not been viable for decades, and that's starting to change.
Yeah, like people, like socialism was a bad word across parties, like probably with 95% of the United States. That was a bad word, and for everyone else it was a fringe thing. Now it's like one of the dominant ideologies of one of the two major parties, right? Like that's
more
crazy.
or less. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but I would say there is a strong socialist element within the Democratic Party that didn't exist before.
I mean, let's look at if you look at the statistic of like how many percent, let's see, percent of Americans.
I was thinking more politicians and not voters,
well,
but
we gotta get our
voters
people
is very
elected
important.
first,
Yeah. I'm sort of saying that the current elected politicians, there is probably an imbalance there.
I know it's fun to hate on parties, but I think that, you know, talking about parties in the government as the people and not as like elected leaders is good. But let's see.
I just wanted to distinguish because it's important to make the party more reflective of its base, and currently I think there is a discrepancy there.
Just from 2019 to 2020, it went from 30. Oh my God! Support for socialism among all Americans increased from 36% to 40% in 2020. That's
really good. That's very promising.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to understate how promising that is, because I feel like when I started getting like politicized, which was probably in like 2010 or so, it was like probably like 10% at most. If I had to guess, like that's what it felt like.
Newsweek. Oh, this one 2019. 43% of Americans saying it would be good for the country. That's wild.
Yeah. That's really encouraging. It's not a majority yet, but it's perhaps even a plurality. Like, it's got to be close. Like, that's really, really encouraging, and I think we need to take that energy and capitalize on it.
No, but
you like that one, huh? Yeah.
I hate that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see like a little like trend line,
Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting. There was a time, obviously, in the United States where socialism was a much healthier movement. In fact, some individual parts of the United States have had like socialist governance before.
Yeah.
Famously, I think it was specifically Kenosha, Wisconsin, although maybe it was like Milwaukee or something, or just the whole state of Wisconsin, I think, had like, there was like a socialist mayor in like either Kenosha or Milwaukee. I unfortunately don't recall which. For like a few decades during the 1900s, like consecutively, not even the same one, like just different socialists kept getting elected. Kansas, I think as well, used to be a bastion of like progressive ideas, particularly with respect to economics, probably not so much with respect to other things because it was during like the 50s, but these sorts of ideas have been popular in the past. There are still remnants of them in our current policies when you look at like social security and other things. And we need to, reawaken that and remind ourselves that it's not un-American, like it's not like a direct conflict with our values.
And on that note, I told a couple times, I told friends like, so you're in a park right now, like why public parks exist in the United States. Public parks were started, like the public park system and like the proliferation of public parks was because of socialists.
And the whole concept of like public
transportation
property as well.
Oh yeah.
Like land that is publicly owned is like revolutionary in and of itself when you think about how much is privatized in this country.
The reason there's so many cities with like public parks in so many neighborhoods, that's socialism. The reason that there are public like transportation systems of buses and trains, that's socialism. Like those ideas literally started with mostly Chicago socialists that made that.
And you might say to yourself, listening, well, I hate public transportation. It sucks. That's because of capitalism. That is not because of socialism. Capitalism has continuously, because it inevitably does, it seeks to undermine the public alternatives to services and goods that capitalism could provide. So a lot of public programs are, over time, gutted by politicians who support capitalism, who are on the payroll of businesses and companies who obviously support capitalism. And eventually these public services become so weakened that this argument begins to take place of, well, maybe we should just privatize it. Maybe we should let private companies handle it because surely they'd do a better job than the government. This argument is currently happening. This process is happening before our eyes with the United States Postal Services, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest accomplishments of the United States in all of its history. The USPS at its peak is one of the most well-organized, most well-functioning machines that does incredible services for everybody in the country. It could not function without it. And yet, this incredible structure of logistics has been routinely undermined and defunded and gutted time and time again to try to make alternative services that are not public, that are private, that will be worse for the consumer, try to make them more viable. I'm talking about things like UPS, right? This also happens with the IRS and with the way that, like reporting your taxes works. When you look at companies like TurboTax that only exist because they've managed to defund and prevent the IRS from making their processes easier for the average American, so that TurboTax can step in and offer paid services to make taxes easier instead.
I'm sorry for going on a rant here, but this is a strongly held belief of mine.
The TurboTax thing is so gross every time I think about it. Every time I see the ads during tax season. The worst thing is the ads that are framed as the government makes this hard. Like, we want to help you. I'm like,
we'll make it easy. Yeah.
Fuck you. yeah. So
that is the classic instance of somebody stealing from you, exchanging it around their backs and selling it back. It's the Skyrim strategy of like pickpocketing a shopkeeper and then selling all the wares back. Like, that is what they're doing.
all right, so
we've gone a little long here.
I just want to say, before we end the
please.
episode, just to cap off with a couple of the statistics.
Yes.
I did find other sources that said 40% of Americans do support socialism. In fact, there's one that it also says there's a big gender divide. Like, it's only like, so it's funny because you hear about Bernie bros, but like women are way more likely to prefer to live in a socialist country than men. So that
that doesn't like women are almost always
it doesn't surprise
almost every
me,
issue substantially more progressive than men.
It doesn't surprise me. But here's a great one. 70% of millennials say they are likely to vote socialist, and that went up. The percentage of millennials who say they are extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate has doubled from 2018 to 2019. So a lot of that, like, those numbers are just skyrocketing,
and keep in mind as well that millennials are no longer like we're not talking about like idealistic teenagers, right? Gen Z are the idealistic teenagers. Millennials are like 30 to 40. Like, these are like actually like a solid voting block that is not necessarily going to drastically change going forward. If that holds when they get into like their boomer years, like 50, 60, that could really affect a lot of change in this country. We'll have to see.
It's funny, every time I tell my dad about like, he's always like, well, your generation. I'm like, Dad, I hope you know that this statistic or this thing I'm talking about is like up to people like my mom's age. Like this goes up to like 45, 50 years old. Like we were just talking about like health trends, and he's like, oh, that's just your generation. Always like with all this like food, you know, like we were talking about healthy foods, and I was just saying like, that's not my generation, Dad. In fact, it's older than my generation. Oh no. This is what I told you.
You warned me. And
this could cost us.
I'll just have to grind up an alternative for the gym. Yeah. I have to immediately.
Maybe we can get our Togekiss.
Maybe. Yeah. I'd ideally like to replace it with a water type, because I think having a water type is very useful often. But yeah. I think we need a beeline for the gym, and we probably need to like skip gym trainers as much as we can, and maybe even bring an experienced sponge while we do them. Yeah. Sorry, I'll let you wrap up your thought though. I know. I for some reason I wasn't paying attention. It didn't click for me that Deoxys was going to give me more experience than the average Pokemon. I thought I was fine for like one more, and I was totally wrong.
It's fine. No, this is pretty much after this battle. This is a good place to end the episode. In the comments, you know, I don't know. What was something interesting we talked about? How mad are you for Will for mansplaining the level system, and then going and you know tipping good old Greta Thunberg, wherever she is.
Yeah, I actually forgot that there were trainers on this route, like fishermen. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, see you next episode.
Yeah, so a bit of an abrupt end to the conversation, but I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.